Hi, my name is Brianna. Most people call me Anna. I never thought that I would make a video like this. I'm actually extremely nervous. Um, but I have been really impacted by other people's testimonies, and I want to share mine because I think that it could help someone, and I know other people's have helped me. So um, here we go. I'll just get straight to my life. As a child, I had a pretty Christian upbringing, and we were pretty much in church all the time. But my dad was an alcoholic, and that's just kind of his own story. My mom's kind of always been a bit of a saint, and my grandparents were kind of the people pulling us in to be in church as kids. And so whenever I was little, I grew up believing in God, and I think that I had a genuine faith for that age. My dad actually became a Christian, and he was extremely serious about it, and he actually became a pastor in my younger teen years. And so we kind of had like a full 180 on our lives, and that's another story for another day. But basically, whenever I was a child, I also experienced a lot of sleep paralysis, and it was scary, and I never could make any sense of it at all. I mean, I was probably 4 or 5 the first time that I ever experienced it, and basically I would just be paralyzed. It was like being in a state of awake and asleep. I could see the entire room and everything in it, but I couldn't move my body, and I could also feel dark presence in the room, and they would taunt me, hold me down. I mean, even at a young age, I would be held down. Couldn't speak, couldn't move, and there was a lot of, I would say, trauma and abuse in my sleep paralysis states, and I never made sense of it, and it was terrifying. And I slept with my mom until I was probably 12, and I really never told anybody about it because I thought that they were just like really bad dreams. And so fast forward into my teen years, I met a guy, and we got pretty serious. I was only 14 at the time, but things got really serious, and we were together for a really long time, and we were pretty much just a part of the secular world. I had stepped back from my faith as a kid and thought that I thought that Christianity was not for me. Like, I didn't really like Christian people. I thought that Jesus was kind of like this historical character, and that those people were just confused. I thought that they were just confused and brainwashed, and I really just kind of wanted to like find my own way and go do something else, and look into other types of religions, and just kind of, I say this all the time to people, is like, you can't live off of someone else's faith, and I couldn't live off of my family's faith. I had to like go out and do my own thing. So I met a guy, and we were together for 10 years, and we were pretty much part of the secular world. We didn't have anything to do with church or anything like that, but we were hungry for I guess some sort of spiritual experience. And we partook in a lot of, not hard drugs or anything, but a lot of like psychedelics. And I mean, hard, we'll put that in quotations because I guess it depends on the person, but a lot of psychedelics and things like that. And I think we were just spiritually hungry and always looking for kind of that next experience, and like overall. And I think that just kind of sunk me deeper into questioning everything. Like it never really made any sense, and I never really got anywhere with it. But it left me empty, and it left me hungrier, just left me empty and hungrier. So that, I think, was a big problem overall. And as time went on, we eventually got married, and he was a really great guy. Were we dabbling in things we shouldn't have been? Yeah, but he was overall really good to me. And I think because we were, spiritually hungry, I obviously got involved in like New Age practices, which I think is super common now. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't have some sort of belief that isn't attached to a New Age or New Thought or a New Age belief. And because of that, I got really, really deep into it. And I made videos like on Facebook and stuff, and had a pretty decent sized following of people, and basically I would just preach selfishness, and that's what the New Age does. It preaches selfishness, and it it brainwashes you into thinking that you are the only character in your story, and you're the only one that matters, and if you're happy, you got to follow the happiness, because if you're happy, then that means that you're on the right path. And so if there is it's called the path of least resistance. So if there's resistance to what you're doing, then you're probably going the wrong direction. And so during that time, early on in our marriage, I really think it was just because I was getting older and there was a lot going on, changing from a teenager into a woman. I mean, you have a 10-year span with someone and you're so young, and you grow up and you start to change. And I think that was probably one of the biggest drivers. But I also think that reading all of this stuff about, if you've got resistance, then you're probably on the wrong path. And so I started to feel some resistance in our relationship, in our marriage. And I grappled with it for several years probably. I mean, I think it happened like shortly after we got married, and so it was like 2 or 3 years that I was really kind of struggling to feel connected. And I think that the drugs and stuff was leaving me feeling emptier. It was making me feel empty in our friendships with other people, because it just, I can't explain it other than it left me feeling just constantly drained and empty, and I wanted something different, but I didn't know obviously what that was. So because there was such a resistance in the relationship, I began to we began to explore the possibility of having an open relationship. And I thought, well, I think you can love more than one person at the same time. And maybe if there's something missing from him, because he was truly wonderful to me. And so it wasn't like he was just awful and it was like, oh, this is easy to leave, because it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy relationship to leave. It was a really hard relationship to leave. And I thought, well, maybe I can, have my cake and eat it too. And so we started questioning the idea of having an open relationship, and it was really more my idea than it was his idea. But him being kind of like a more free, open individual, he agreed to it. And we ended up staying together, but we saw other people, and that was a very interesting time. I can't say that I recommend it, because I think over time it pushed us further apart, because we were too invested in other people and things like that. But along the way, I did start dating, which is now my husband, which is probably the craziest story. So I started seeing him, and he was not he was not for the open relationship aspect, but he obviously accepted it for what it was, and him and my ex were good friends, and so it all panned out. But ultimately it led to me leaving my husband for my husband now. And yeah, I would never, now that I'm a Christian, I would never even consider doing something like that. And I think, and I tell my husband this, my current husband, this all the time. I say, if I had just, you know, kind of, if we had known God's word, if I had known God's word when I was in my first marriage, I 1000% think I could have worked that marriage out, actually. But I was blind and I couldn't see it. And so there was no working it out. I was selfish. I wanted what I wanted. And so I left. And so that obviously caused a lot of pain and heartache, but we moved on from it. And then my current husband and I, we never had any sort of open relationship or anything like that. And we were always, he had some very traditional beliefs, and he was actually a Christian who had backslid, and I didn't even really know that. I knew that he had read the Bible, and I knew that some people, I heard like family members make fun of him about a time when he would go to church and he was baptized and all that, but I really just didn't think anything of it. And I thought that he had just kind of let that go, and he did for some time. And I think that what he experienced was also just like wanting to make sure, you want to make sure that you're not brainwashed, because Christianity, like people, the way that people look at that is people look down on it. And there's a lot of reasons for that, a lot of biblical reasons for that, that you can't see until you know them. So after we met though, we ended up having our son, and we got married, and then we had our daughter, and so now we have 2 children together. And it seemed kind of like, well, I guess the grass is greener on the other side, because we were just doing great and thriving, and honestly we still are to this day. But we dealt with so much darkness, and what we had done was so wrong and so twisted and so dark, and that's obviously what the enemy does. And we, you know, kind of just lived a normal, I want to say normal, put that in quotations. We just lived a really normal life. We were good to each other, and oddly we had a lot of Christian values that I didn't even know that we had, because I just wasn't a Christian, and he had backslid, and it was just like this like moving on thing, and we were just living our lives. And I don't remember exactly what led me. I'm assuming that God was just pursuing me, and I could feel it. And I had this like moment of just being like, you know, I think I just felt really lonely, you know, through the divorce and everything. I had lost all of my friends, and really it was just me, my husband, and my children, which is wonderful. Like I am fulfilled by them, but you know, it's hard to not have any like genuine friendships at all, and for people to turn their back on you, especially when you're being extremely vulnerable and open and honest, which I was with all of them. But I was feeling really lonely, and I just remember being like, God, you know, if you exist, can you just please make yourself known to me? Like literally just throw me a bone, anything. And I just let that go. And it wasn't but like a few days, I had come across someone's video on YouTube, which I did not watch any Christian content at all, and I watched it, and she was just, it was basically, she didn't seem like somebody who would be a Christian to me, and so she was explaining why she was a Christian, and she kind of dove into some of the people that had kind of helped her, some apologetics and things like that. And so I started getting interested in it and started doing some of my own research on just the resurrection of Christ in general, because like I was like, well, if I can like disprove that Jesus resurrected, then I can disprove Christianity, and I can just move on with my life and, you know, try to figure out what's next. And once I started to do that research, I had a night where I had sleep paralysis again. And what was so bizarre about it is that I hadn't had, like, the entire time I was kind of doing my own selfish thing, I hadn't had any sort of sleep paralysis. It pretty much just lay dormant for years and years. And then all of a sudden, when I'm, you know, considering Jesus at all, it pops back up. And I had a really, really rough time and a really rough 3 days of sleep paralysis. And I just knew that I had pissed whatever it was off. Like, I could just tell that they were super angry with me. And after the third night, I was waking up in just puddles of sweat and just panic, and I was so scared, and I had so much anxiety. And I was like, okay. I was like, I get it. Like, I get it. This is it. Like, it was like I understood. Like, it was like God was letting that happen to me because I needed to have that experience. I needed to, like, understand that what had been attacking me this whole time was, I'm going to call it what it is. It was demons. They don't discriminate whether you're for, like, they'll go after children. They went after me. I think that they left me alone because they had me where they wanted me. And the moment that I considered my faith again, they came back after me. And yeah, it was like the dumbest thing that they ever did, but also I'm just so happy that God allowed it, because after that third day, like, I woke up that morning in tears, and I had just laid it all out there. I repented. I told God that I was so sorry, and the rest is really just history. After that, I welcomed him into my heart, and he has changed my life in so many ways, and I have so much peace now with everything that I have, and I'm so grateful. Like, I'm so grateful. I told myself I wasn't gonna cry, but I am. I'm super grateful, and I'm just super grateful that he saved me. And it's like, you know, you read in the Bible about how he won't, you know, he's not gonna lose one of his sheep, and you know, he came running after me, and he didn't just come running after me. He also came running after my husband, who was also a believer but had backslid. And I was so scared to tell him what had happened to me. I knew that I couldn't come back from it, but if you don't experience sleep paralysis, you really can't believe it. Like, it's a really hard thing to wrap your mind around, and unless you're someone who's had it before, I don't think that you can actually understand it. But I told Cody about it, and he was like, yeah, I get it. And he was like telling me that he also had a conversion, and so much, I mean, it was just, I didn't realize that his faith was as deep as it was before. And he was like, yeah, I mean, before I was like out evangelizing and like doing all these things, and I had this experience. And he was like, I understand what you're going through, and to have a husband who you think is gonna think that you're absolutely nuts just embrace you and love you and like understand what you're going through, it means everything. And that right there is God, because he took us in our absolute darkness. I mean, he took our ashes and he made them beautiful. And we were in such a dark place, and it didn't matter to him. He still pursued us, and he still made like one of the most shameful stories incredible. And now and now we get to raise our children together and lead them in the right direction. And I don't deserve it. We don't deserve it, but I give God all the glory, and I'm so grateful for him. And I just wanted to do this testimony because I want you to know that, you know, God can put a new spirit inside of you, and he can take your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh, and just like he did me. And yeah, that's my story. I pray that you have eyes to see and ears to hear, and if there's anything that I left out, or if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. But thank you so much if you made it this far. Thank you for listening to my story. And I don't know if there's going to be more content on here, but I do want to get this out. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for watching.